In the dim, candle-lit homes of a quiet 1960s suburb, a blackout stretched through the neighborhood, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. But at midnight, when most residents were lost in uneasy sleep, a strange TV channel flickered to life on every screen, a broadcast of secrets that could never stay buried. This is the story of James, an ambitious young salesman who thought he could start over in a new town, in a new home. But in the dead of night, as the black and white screen revealed the darkest corners of each house, James would come face to face with the sins he thought he'd left behind. James and his family, weary from the move, enter their new home, a modest yet charming house, nestled in a close-knit, seemingly friendly suburb. His wife and young son head upstairs, leaving James alone to unpack. James had left a lot behind in his old town. A life of deception, a quick buck made on the backs of those who trusted him. But here, with a fresh start, he believed he could rebuild. He places a photograph on the mantel, his gaze lingering on it, as if weighed by something unspoken. Yet, as the neighbors came by to welcome them, bearing casseroles and warm smiles, James couldn't shake the feeling that eyes lingered a bit too long, that glances held secrets he couldn't understand. A peaceful evening is interrupted by a sudden power outage. The house plunges into darkness and James's family retires for the night, leaving him downstairs in the flickering glow of candlelight. It was midnight when the silence grew thick, almost as if something lurked just beyond the walls. James, restless, decides to flick on the old TV, hoping for some distraction. To his surprise, the screen crackles to life despite the blackout, displaying a grainy black and white feed of the neighborhood. James, whispering to himself, "What?" He adjusts the antenna, but the picture remains fuzzy, showing faint, familiar shapes. The strange channel shows homes in the neighborhood, the footage grainy but unmistakable. It cycles through each house, revealing more than just empty rooms. Each house appeared in eerie monochrome, living rooms, bedrooms, shadowed hallways. As James watched, his unease grew. The scenes became progressively darker, showing unsettling glimpses. A father in an argument with his wife, a child sneaking out of his window into the night. Secrets unfolded one by one, hidden no longer. He begins to recognize each house, but then his heart stops. The screen shows his own living room. There, on the screen, was James's new home. But this wasn't live footage. It was something far more sinister. The screen showed him in his old office, counting a stack of money he had taken with less than honest intentions. The scene on the screen cuts to a close-up of his face, almost as if staring back at him from the past, his expression twisted with greed. James, now pale with fear, tries to turn off the TV, but the image of himself and his misdeeds continues playing on a loop. Panicking, James tried to shut the TV off, but the knob wouldn't turn. His heart raced as he heard a faint whisper filling the room, a voice that seemed to come from the walls, from the very air itself. The whispers grow louder, forming into words. Spirit whispering, "You can't hide from what you've done. We see everything." The screen shows a figure standing in his backyard, a faint, ghostly shape watching his house. A wave of dread filled him as he recognized the figure, someone he'd known from his old town, a face that should have stayed buried in the past. This was the spirit of a man he had wronged, a man who had taken his own life in despair after losing everything to James's schemes. The broadcast resumes, this time showing James's family sleeping peacefully, unaware of the horror unfolding downstairs. The spirit's face fills the screen, eyes burning with a vengeful intensity. James now understood the curse. Anyone who watched this broadcast would be haunted, dragged into the darkness by the spirits of those they had wronged. Unless unless he could release the restless soul bound to the screen. Desperately, he begins searching for a way to make amends. What do you want? Tell me how to stop this. The screen flickers, and a message appears in scratchy handwriting. Confess. James sits in front of the screen, pouring out his confessions, every sin, every lie, every betrayal. His voice shakes, fear and regret evident in every word. As James spoke, the figure on the screen seemed to grow fainter, the whispers fading into silence. The room felt lighter, the air less oppressive. But the screen remained on, as if waiting for one final act. The figure speaks, its voice a chilling echo. You've confessed, but forgiveness must come from those you've wronged. Until then, you are bound to this place. The image distorts, showing his family's faces twisted in pain, a grim warning of what awaited if he failed. The next day, James contacts the families of those he swindled, offering them what little he has left in reparation. He unburdens his guilt, watching as his new life begins to unravel. As he paid his dues, piece by piece, the ghostly figure stopped appearing on his screen. The midnight broadcasts grew weaker, the images less vivid, until one night, the screen remained dark. But the house had taken its toll. His family, now aware of his past, looked at him differently. James had freed himself from the curse, but at a cost. A life he could never reclaim. A family whose trust was now forever fractured. And though the screen was dark, the sense of being watched lingered in the shadows. A reminder that some secrets leave scars that never fade. The midnight broadcast was gone, but the memories remained, an echo of guilt woven into the walls of the house. Because sometimes it isn't ghosts that haunt us. Sometimes it's the shadows of our own mistakes, waiting to be seen in the cold, unforgiving light of truth. The scene fades to black, leaving the quiet, foreboding hum of static in the background.